Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Soul Seeds, where the wonderful Laurie is my guest expert for today. And Laurie is an acupuncturist and a spiritual guide. And the topic we are going to discuss today is our creative life force. So, welcome, Laurie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And I would love to know exactly what is our life force. It sounds really big.
Yeah, well, that's a great way to kind of enter into it. It's big and it's also small. So every particle and wave of the entire universe
Mhm,
is an electron or of a little particle of life force.
mhm,
Everything is made up of life force, including our bodies and our thoughts and all our furniture and the trees and everything
mhm,
is life force, right? I've come to understand that it's also all of those particles of life force is light. So
mhm,
everything is made up of light. And so that makes it easier for me to actually invite it into myself
mhm,
so that I have an intimate and personal like relationship with it as well as it being universal. I have
mhm,
found that it's really important that we cultivate the personal and the universal of our
mhm,
life force. And nobody teaches us how to manage our life force. Like it's
mhm,
everything. It's beating our heart, it's pumping our blood, it's giving us words to have this talk right now. So, turning toward it and then, cultivating a relationship with it like we would with anybody that is important to us
mhm.
becomes really it makes it magical in our life.
And is life force the same as energy, or is it that
Yeah.
and
Yeah. So
more?
there's a lot of words we could call it,
Mhm.
chi. Chinese medicine uses
Right.
the word chi, but that's just a Chinese word for energy, life force, spirit, you know, source, the universe, the divine. It's all the same thing. And it doesn't matter what we call it, but
Hmm.
it does matter that we call it.
Right.
Call
And
it
for
in.
me, like
Call it forth.
calling it
Yeah.
energy sounds a bit more, I don't know, attainable, graspable. I don't know.
Well, no, you're right. And I mean, we could even call it nature because it's
Mm,
also nature. And nature's right outside of our windows. We're breathing it, right? So
mhm. Yeah.
that's how personal it could be. And energy is a good way if that's the whole thing is we need an entry to
Right.
it. And it's going to be our mind that determines what that will be.
Yeah.
Our mind will keep the door closed until we kind of figure out how to get in. You know what I mean? So
Right.
whatever word works.
Right.
And honestly, Susan, this is what is it Suzanne or Susan? Suzanne. Yeah.
Susanna, it's Dutch. No.
Okay. Okay.
But call me Susie.
Oh, Susie, even better. Okay. Was I saying uh oh, I just lost track of what I was saying.
Oh,
Well, it'll
sorry.
come back. No, it's my fault. I'm the one who cut myself off.
No,
Yeah.
but like you say, like our mind tend to like label words, or if they are not understandable
Yes.
yet or graspable yet, we tend to, okay, like look for a different word that makes more sense to us in that kind of way, right?
Yeah, that our mind won't block, right? Oh, I
Mhm,
know what I was going to say. It's one of the reasons like to use the word light
mhm,
because it's impossible for the mind to resist the fact that light is every particle of life, right?
mhm,
And I like to see a waterfall of light, like liquid light pouring in through the top of my head and
mhm,
filling my whole body, even spilling out into the space around me.
mhm,
And that actually is something I have found the mind will allow because the light is bigger than the mind.
mhm,
Not I now I don't I in the beginning I never saw the light. I just was like, well, there's something here. I could feel it, energetically, but now I can only because I just didn't stop, connecting into it. And here's to tie into our theme of the our conversation is every particle and wave of the universe has a creative impulse to it,
mhm,
right? Anyone can just sit and watch nature and say, oh, wow, nature is constantly creating.
mhm,
And there, of course, is a cycle where it will drop its leaves, and that, then that makes energy for the next cycle of creation.
mhm,
But this is how we can take a breath in and teach ourselves that we are a creative being because
mhm.
no particle and wave of life isn't. Every particle of life is.
Right.
We're like a whole symphony of creativity,
Mm-hmm.
because we have 70 trillion cells, and every one of those cells carries not only a blueprint for our health and our wholeness, but of creative expression. And
Mm-hmm.
this doesn't mean one has to put a painting on the famous European wall museums, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
just
Right.
no. How do I want to talk to my teenager? How do I want to plant these flowers? How do I want to
Mm-hmm.
put food on this plate? Yeah, maybe I might want to explore painting or sculpting or, something more, considered artistic.
Mm-hmm.
But everything we're doing is creative. And if we're intentional about it and we connect
Mm-hmm.
with our higher self and our soul and our heart that's already creative, we get to open some doors that give us some kind of a life force that is more, that's what we're searching for anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because
Yeah.
we are constantly creating our like near future with how we think in the present moment, right?
Right. Well, I've come to learn to see that slightly, and this is probably what you mean. What we're doing is we're creating our moments,
Mm-hmm.
and then our moments create our future.
Mm-hmm.
Moving it, our moments is what puts us in a direction that our future we're gonna live into, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really being present right now and being creative right now, creative in the thoughts we think and the space we create around us, what we put on our body, all the things, right? How we manage our
Mm-hmm.
nutrition, all of that is creative by nature. And so when we do that in the moment and we're present with it, and the only way we can be present is by being connected to our true and higher self, because
Mm-hmm.
that's where our wisdom and our intelligence and our creative capacities flow from. And it's also in every cell of our body. So this is back to the beginning of our conversation. It's exquisitely intimate and personal as well as universal.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in this constant dance with the internal and the external life force, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, because I was just reading in a book, I don't think it's coincidence, but it really just said we're all made of stardust. We are made of
Yes.
the universe. So,
Yes. And when science doesn't even know this yet, science just thinks that what we breathe in is oxygen. And of course,
mm-hmm.
it is oxygen, but there's all this other cosmic substance, this cosmic life force that is falling down from the starlight and, from the sunlight and,
Mm-hmm.
we know the trees but it's so much more vast and nourishing to us than we even have any knowing of yet in
Mm-hmm.
our, analytical mind.
Yeah, and when you say that we can like intentionally like use that life force to heal ourselves or to grow in many ways, like
Yes.
how can we put that intention behind it and really use that life force for that purpose?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. So let's talk about that. And I want to say this because every breath I take makes me more understanding and having a strong stand for this, which is not only are we supposed to do that, it's our job
Mm-hmm.
as human beings. It's our job to do it. So how do we do it? Is by being present. The very first sort of foundational brick, 101,
Mm-hmm.
is to be present and call it into us. I mentioned that I like to actually envision it as a waterfall that's flowing into me.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that it fills my heart,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a fountain in a park.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's this waterfall that's pouring into me. I ask my higher presence to release it. Our higher presence will always do this. It's
Mm-hmm.
us who blocks it, right?
Right.
So pour it into my head. I imagine it filling my head, which tends to calm my mind and settle my emotions and, melt worry. Don't we
Mm.
all want to melt our worry, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Yeah. And then draw. Now this takes practice. It's like a little bit of a muscle to build. So if one tries it once or twice and then they're like, "Well, I don't feel anything, forget it."
Right.
That's not fair. You
Same with
just keep.
meditation. It takes practice.
Exactly. Anything that's important, you got to just keep working with it because the way you do it and the way I do it may not be the same thing, but here's a starting place, right? So
Yeah.
you invite this and just imagine, go to Google if you need to have a vision of a waterfall and just imagine you're standing under it and it's coming in through the top of your head and filling your entire body.
Mm-hmm.
And then if there's a place in I do this all the time and I'm getting really good at it, so I know it works. one can direct that energy to a place in your body that needs healing or, calming or support or whatever. You can direct that light to be like a pool in your brain where you can maybe put mental spinning thoughts into it and imagine that it's just kind of dissolving, the emotional tangle. Every time we have like a pain or an emotional thing going on, there will be a place in our body that we can usually drop into our body and find the tension. You know what I mean? And then we can invite the light to like soften the tension and give it some ease. And so this requires us being present. It requires us being in our body. It requires us connecting to our higher self and then inviting that life force into us, and then once we get a little bit better at it, we can direct that life force for creative purposes, right?
Right. And this, like, I would like to call it a technique for now, that using your life force and creating that intention. I think this technique, or that even we have it all inside of it's our energy, but I think it's
Yes.
still quite like undervalued or misunderstood.
Well, we don't have a connection with it. We don't have any relationship with it. We haven't cultivated it like a garden. I mean, if we have a package of seeds and we're starving, we can't be mad that we didn't put the seeds in the ground and water and, all the things and
Yeah.
tend the garden. It's the same idea here. Everything, every seed, we have 70 trillion. We actually have more than that. We have 70 trillion cells. Inside every single one of those cells is 70 trillion atoms. And every one of those atoms is this particle of light or life force that we're talking about. And it carries the blueprint for our wholeness and our creative expression, our capacity to thrive in this life. And it may seem like, oh, that's so fantastical. How is that possible when the world is such a shit show? Pardon my French. But this is where I get really passionate because, yes, the world is the way it is because we're projecting fear and hate and division into the world. So, of course, the world is going to feed that back to us. But every single human being that takes a stand for themselves and says, okay, I'm going to stop scratching and clawing outside of myself, and I'm just going to simply do my work every time I think of it throughout the day. And then I'm going to wake up the next morning and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to call that light in. And I guarantee you, to every listener, if you do that regularly, I drink a lot of tea, so I have to go to the bathroom a lot. So every time I go to the bathroom, I do this, right? And the light, your own, private connection with your light will teach you everything you need. It is personal medicine for each and every one of us. And when more and more of us are doing this, then there will be a different thing that we're projecting into the world stage. And the world will project back peace and harmony and all the things that every one of us want. Well, most of us.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, because when you raise your own vibration, it literally vibrates to other people as well, and they can pick up on
100%.
that.
And that vibration is the light.
There you go.
It can't be separate. And here's another beautiful thing. This is where yin yang and the alpha and the omega and the masculine and the feminine they can't be separated from each other. So light carries love. The entire fabric of the universe is love, and it's our job to call that into us and then have that energy to express into life, to love ourselves. We're part of life. Light carries love. So when I call light in, I know that light and love are not disconnected, and that's what's filling me up. And then that's what I have to offer into my life, into the life around me.
But of course,
And
where
when
there's,
we
oh, sorry, yeah.
go ahead, no, you go.
Oh, now I always think like, okay, where there's light and where there's love, there's also dark and negative. And should we learn to embrace that, to really
Well,
embrace our
that's a
light
good
as well?
question. What we would be best served to do is embrace whatever dark we have in us, because that energy is actually begging to be brought home to the light. If we go into a room and if it's dark and we flick on a light, it's not dark anymore. So they're actually we are on a planet of duality. So we have been taught, and the programming is we have to have dark.
Mhm.
But that's actually only one dimension. In a different dimension that we're all moving into, including Mother Earth, and this will happen in our lifetime, it actually, there isn't the degree of shadow that we have experienced in the density of the third dimensional realm. So it doesn't matter how we parse that out. We don't have to be afraid of the shadow or the dark. We don't have to run from it. We don't have to hide it in the closet or sweep it under the carpet anymore. We would be best served to go, oh, something is coming up that feels shadowy or dark or heavy or dense or triggering or trauma-ish, what, painful, whatever, is to stop, take a breath, connect to our higher self, our light, invite that light, and then turn to it. Don't run away from it.
Right.
Turn to it and bring the gift of light to it. And that is a healing gesture. You know what I mean? And
Right.
more often than not, it takes care of it. Now, our like themes of life, that we all have a big piece that we're working on, and it's usually one that's going to teach us throughout our whole life. So we can't get mad if it keeps coming back. The little things we can sort of settle in and bring to rest very easily. But here's the point, and then I'll shut up. Turn to it. Don't run from it. Turn into it, invite it, and bring the light to it. And that is the most potent medicine we have available to us.
Well, thank you so much, Laurie, for today. It was enlightening.
Yes. Yay. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.